Hi, this is Anil and welcome to the video tutorial on Java programming. So in this tutorial, I'm going to teach you about the arrays in Java. So first of all, what are these arrays and what is the use of these arrays? So in the previous tutorials, you guys have learned how to create and use the variables. For example, let's say you want to save your mark. Then what you can do is you can create a variable, which is of type integers, because we are assuming that your mark is an integer value, and you're gonna create a variable and you're gonna store the value, let's say 88. So here in this mark variable we can only store one value at a time. So what if you want to store the mark of 6 subjects? So at that time what you can do is you can create 6 other variables and you can store the values in that 6 separate variables. But in Java, what you can do is you can create something called an array, and you can store 6 values which are of same type under one name. So we can say that an array is a collection of similar elements. So here in our marks example, you want to store the marks of 6 subjects. At that time you can create an array called marks and you can store the values in it. For example, 66, 88, 99, 44, 11, 22, whatever the values you want to store, you can store in that. So an array is a collection of similar elements. So here once you create an array in your program, you can store the similar type of data in that. You can't store a integer value, then a floating point value, then a string value. So if your array is of type integers, then you can store integer value in it. If your array is of type strings, you can store only the string values. If your array is of type float, then you can only store the floating point values. So now how to create an array in our program, or what is the syntax of creating an array. So if you guys know about the C or C++ programming, then the process of creating an array in Java is entirely different from that. So let's see how to create an array. So in Java, to create an array, first we need to create a variable which is going to contain something called a reference. A reference is nothing but the address of memory location. So here let's say we want to create an array which can store the integer values. So what we're going to do is we're going to write the data type first, which is going to be int, and then the name, let's say marks. You want to store the marks, and then you're going to have the opening and closing square brackets and then the semicolon. So this is going to declare a variable called marks which can contain the address of memory location, which is going to contain different values, which are nothing but the marks of our different subjects. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to allocate the memory to save the marks. So we can allocate the memory in Java by using something called a new operator. So we're gonna write marks equal to then the new operator and then the data type. In this case it's gonna be integers, then the square brackets, and then how many elements or how many values you want to store. We want to store the marks of, let's say, 6 subjects. So I'm gonna pass that here. Then add the semicolon. That's it. Now we have an array called marks, which can store 6 values which are of type integers. And the next thing is you can create an array in Java by using this method, by writing this in 2 lines, or you can do it in single line. To do that, let's say I'm going to create another array, and this array is going to be of type strings. So it's going to be the data type first, string, and then as I told you before, we need to use this square brackets. You can use this square brackets right here, after this data type, or after the variable name. It doesn't matter, wherever you want to use, you guys can use that. So I'm just going to use here, and then the name, let's say my girlfriend names. So girlfriend, okay, girlfriends. Alright, then I'm going to use the equal to symbol, then I'm going to use the new operator, and then the data type, which is going to be string, and then the square brackets, and then the size. Let's say I have 5 girlfriends. Alright, here we have created 2 arrays. So this is one way of creating an array, and this is another way of doing the same thing. And it doesn't matter which method you're gonna use to create the array, it's just gonna create an array, that's it. Alright, the next thing is how to store the values in the arrays. And also when you use this new operator and allocate the memory for the arrays, that memory locations allocated are gonna contain some default values. So if your data type is integers, then that array elements or the memory locations are going to contain a value of 0, and if your data type is float, then it's going to contain I think 0.0, and if it is string, then it's going to contain null. And similarly for other data types, this is going to contain their default values. Alright, the next thing that I want you guys to teach you is how to assign some values to an array. So here we have to store the marks of 6 subjects in this marks array. So I'm going to write marks, then the square brackets, and now the indexing. So the first element will be present at the index 0. So we're going to write 0 here, and then the equal to symbol for which is the assignment operator, and then the value, let's say 55. And similarly I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to paste it, and I'm just gonna change this one to 1. The second element will be present at the location 1 because the index will start from 0, and let's say 35, and the third element will be present at the index 2, and let's say 45, any value. Then the fourth element will be present at the index 3, 65, and then the fifth element will be present at the index 4, 57. Then the last element or the sixth element will be present at the index 5. Let's say 5 marks, that's enough. Alright, now to assign the values to the array, or to store the values in an array, we need to use the array name or the variable name. Then we're gonna have the index here. So in arrays, the index will start from 0. So the first element that you're going to store in that array will be start from the index 0. Second element will be at the index 1, and similarly the last element will be present at the index 1 less than the size of the array. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to print out the values which are stored in this array. So I'm just going to use a system.out.println, and I'm just going to refer the array name which is marks, then the square brackets, and then the index. Let's say we want to print out the value which is stored in the third element. So the third element will be present at the index 2, and that's why I'm just gonna pass the index as 2 here, and that's it. I'm gonna run this program, and you guys can see we get 45. And similarly if I change this one to 5, and if I run this, you guys can see 5. And similarly you can store some values in this arrays, and also you can access the values from the array. So this is it, guys. This is about the introduction to the arrays in Java, and this is how you guys can declare the arrays and store the values in it, and also this is how you guys can retrieve it. So thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.